afternoon, everyone. For those of you that are just joining us now for our PM session, welcome to our Finding Your Ideal School Fit session. For those of you that are joining us, my name is Jules Joseph. I'm the field administrator for the Arts Education Program.
And I'm Alyssa Alfano, the assistant director for Teaching and Learning Programs.
During this morning's panel, we talked a little bit about school type and finding your ideal school fit, and really thinking about what are some other factors aside from commute time that might go into sort of like that matching process. So we have a guest presenter here, Malcolm Davis from Get Selected, and he's going to talk through some steps and considerations and things you should think through while you're getting sort of flooded with amazing hiring opportunities. So Malcolm.
Thank you, Jules. And first and foremost, thank you everybody for having me today. Much like what was mentioned, we're going to talk about how to find your ideal school fit. So I am here on behalf of Selected. We are a teacher and school matching platform and also a teacher support platform. And so I'll talk a little bit about what we do, but mostly this time is going to be spent really talking about, first and foremost, you all being selfish. This is probably the first time as teachers someone's told you like be selfish in this process, but for you to find your specific ideal school fit, you're gonna really have to just be honest with yourself about what matters most. So we're gonna be really selfish but also self-reflective around what are the key components of a school and what's gonna help you be successful as a teacher. So it'll be about 45 minutes. At the end, I have about 10 to 15 minutes worth of question and answer space for you all. So what I ask is that two things. First and foremost, if you have to use the bathroom or anything, please don't walk through the door here in front, or please don't walk in front of the presentation if you can't use the door in the back there. And the second thing, again, since I have time at the end for questions, if you can write down any questions that you have, I'll make sure to get to it at the very end for you, okay? Thumbs up if that works for everybody. We're good to go. Perfect. That's why I love teachers so much. All right, and so let me talk quickly about Selected. Like I said, we are a teacher and school matching platform and also a teacher support platform. As of right now, we work with about 700 plus schools, K through 12 hiring schools from Boston down to DC and Baltimore. And then in January of 2019, we started working in Los Angeles. Realistically, we're a free service for you all if you're looking for an opportunity to find a job. The reason why I'm here is to talk about the different school fits that are available, the vast majority of whom we already work with. I'm not going to continue to drive this point home. If you want more information, I'll be here for the mixer after this anyway, so like we can definitely talk. And so the biggest piece here is it's 100% free for you all. We don't charge you anything. You get a free coach that takes you through the process, again, for free. So my name is Malcolm Davis. I'm the Director of School Support and Outreach. I love this picture. If you know Signature Theater, this is right in front of it. I love that place, it's great. But anyway, so I am the Director of School Support and Outreach. My role is really two pieces. I work with our K through 12 schools to find teachers like yourself on our platform. And then secondarily, I run a ton of PDs like this, pretty much up and down the East Coast. From now until pretty much the middle of April, I'll be doing a ton of these, realistically to help you all find the jobs that you're looking for. And so, previously to joining Selected, I was an outreach and selection recruiter for Uncommon Schools in Brooklyn and also in Camden, New Jersey. Before that, I was a teacher for a year. I taught 8th grade ELA in the Bronx through Citizen Schools and AmeriCorps program, and then I also ran an after-school program from AmeriCorps in East Harlem. So I've worn quite a few hats, but pretty much from a hiring standpoint, I've definitely done a lot of different things. And so quickly to talk about our agenda, we'll talk about school culture versus school fit. What do those two things mean? We'll go through some retention data, and realistically, before we get to the data, I just want you to keep in mind, this is data that's reflective of why people left teaching. Not to say like this is not a good craft to go into, more so like when people leave, this is sort of some of the reasons why. We'll go through a big piece here, which is gonna be self-reflection. We're gonna watch a quick video and go through several activities that will really like push and prompt you to think about what matters to you as a teacher. And then when we figure out what matters to you, we'll go through strategies around how to assess fit. So when you're looking for that perfect school or close to perfect school, how do you go about that? What is that process? And as I promised at the very end, I promise I won't get to it, some closing thoughts and any questions that you may have. And so really quickly, can I have a brave volunteer go ahead and read this definition for me, please? Yes.
A school's culture can be defined as the traditions, beliefs, policies, and norms within a school that can be shaped, enhanced, and maintained through the school's principal and teacher leaders.
Thank you so much. And so the biggest piece here, that's a great definition, but to boil it down for you, a school's culture is basically determined by the administrative staff, and then it's continued to be cultivated by the teacher leaders in the building, right? So we're talking about a school's culture, we're talking about something created by administration, upheld by the teacher leaders in the building. So next for school fit, there's really no formal definition. So we did compile one of our own. Can I have one more brave volunteer, please, really quickly? Our hand went up so quickly the last time. It's okay, it's great. Thank you.
Well, think of it as the qualities and characteristics of a school and its culture that are prioritized by teachers as factors for success in job satisfaction and retention.
And so school fit is going to be what the teachers themselves prioritize as high-level factors for their own retention. Basically, what is going to keep a teacher at a school, right? If you don't prioritize the things that really matter to you, what are the chances you'll stay at this school and remain in that opportunity? And so again, as we look at the data on teacher retention, this big bucket here of dissatisfaction, we'll actually dive into that on the next slide to talk about what that is. But family and personal reasons is pretty straightforward, right? Your partner may have gotten a job somewhere else. You may have to go and take care of an elderly family member. But this is around people that left as a teacher. So this also includes people that went into administration, people like myself that went into teacher recruitment. So family and personal reasons, something's taking you away from your opportunity as a teacher. Retirement more so deals with like the public school districts, parochial schools, independent schools. You don't see nearly as many people retiring from charter schools to pursue another job. And so this bucket has actually changed a lot. You're seeing a lot of really unique and great opportunities within education for teachers like yourselves to become entrepreneurs. And so you're seeing people go into the tech sector, you're seeing people go into nonprofit. So just because they left their job as a teacher doesn't necessarily mean that they left education. They might have found the opportunity for themselves that better align with what they were trying to do. And then financial reasons, this last one here, I was really surprised when we were pulling this data together that financial reasons was actually the last one. When you come in to teach and you hear, hey, you don't make enough money as a teacher, like this is the one thing that everyone likes to talk about. Some instances that is true, but what I can say as a brand new teacher here in New York and in New Jersey where I've hired, you start anywhere between $55,000 to $65,000 as far as being certified, ready to go year one. That's not the same for some business majors. Some lawyers that I knew had to intern for several years before they ever made a dime, right? And so financial reasons wasn't really a big reason why a lot of people left. And again, this is anyone that left teaching just as a primary role in a classroom. So again, like I said, we'll talk about what dissatisfaction means. First and foremost, to start it here. So dissatisfaction with testing and accountability pressures. And I'll speak personally for myself. This is why I chose to not continue to teach, specifically in like the public schools, because I wasn't interested in teaching to a test. I personally don't find like a direct correlation between state tests and someone's success as a human being or as an individual long term. And so I decided like that wasn't the best role for me. Several other teachers that I've worked with pretty much came to the same kind of realization and decided to pursue other things. Lack of administrative support, this could be a lot of different things. So not getting regular observations, you don't get regular feedback from your teacher leaders in the building. Professional development isn't something that's like ongoing or reoccurring throughout the school year. Dissatisfaction with the teaching career is really, no one's ever dissatisfied with teaching. Usually teachers love what they do, they love their students. There's something else outside of the classroom that's kind of pulling them away. And so dissatisfaction with your teaching career is usually a bunch of different things altogether. And then dissatisfaction with working conditions. So I give this example all the time. I had a friend of mine that taught with TFA in Oklahoma, and where she worked, they did not have running water inside the building, which meant that they all had to use outhouses outside. I told her, I respected the work that she did, but I would never teach in a building where I needed an outhouse. But conversely, where I taught in the Bronx, we had 30 kids in a room. Some of them were sharing books. The books were really old. So like that's another means of being dissatisfied with working conditions. I was okay with one of them, wasn't with the other. That's why finding your own specific fit is so, so important. And so we're gonna transition here into the more self-reflective piece. Much like the dog here looking into the window, we're gonna really look into our souls and try to figure out what matters the most to us as teachers. And so as we're working through this process, we're gonna start here. I'm gonna actually give you all 2 minutes really quickly, and I want you to either think or jot down A and B, and so I'm gonna walk through this for you really fast. So I want you to define what fit looks like for you. So A, or the number one, is gonna be what qualities must a school have? So I want 2 qualities that a school must have, right? And then I want two things that you'll need to be successful as a teacher. And even though they may seem very similar, we'll kind of talk about how they are different. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes really quickly. Again, I want you to talk about what 2 qualities a school must have, and then what are 2 things that you'll need to succeed as a teacher. And before I break you all to go ahead and do this, can one person really quickly teach back to me what I just said? I'm giving you 2 minutes to do something very specific, or 2 things. What am I asking you to do?
So jot down or reflect in your head about 2 things that a school must have for you, qualities, and then what you need to succeed as a teacher.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm giving you 2 minutes right now. Have about a minute left. Thumbs up if you have 2 for both already. Okay, I'll give you the rest of the minute. Have about 15 seconds. All right, finish up your last thought really quickly. And so I should have prefaced this whole session also by saying that I'm gonna need you all to like interact with me. There's no wrong answers. This is a place where you can be transparent, judgment-free zone. There are no wrong answers because again, this is about you. So I would love if I could get at least 2 people to share both what they have for A and B. Again, there are no wrong answers. And as much as you all like share out, we'll learn from each other and ultimately it'll help you come to a much better conclusion. So can I have one person that will go A and B for me, please?
One quality I would need is like a culture of observation, like someone to constantly give me feedback or space to give my colleagues feedback, so we're developing a department together. That's what I'm.
Absolutely. Professional development, observations, feedback, all of those things. And for me, that's a priority.
It's like a plan,
yeah.
so that I'm not stagnant in my profession.
And it has to be purposeful, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll hear schools say, hey, we'll give you professional development, we'll help you grow. But if it's not written out, if there isn't something very concrete, that isn't something like regimented in place, that's scheduled, the chances of it ever getting to that point are relatively slim. So if PD and like professional development is something that you're looking for, make sure it's written out very, very clearly. And thank you for sharing. Can I have one other person share for me, please? Yes.
I think that for me it's like the environment, like a sense of community and collaboration between departments and within a department.
Thank you.
So I think that's important.
Absolutely. I think it'd be hard pressed as a teacher to talk to any other teacher that won't say the importance of communication within your building. Like, yes, definitely within your department, but even between departments, right? Because like your students, we're teaching all of them. And so your position, ELA, is what I taught, but like we work very closely with the science and math department too, to make sure that our students got the most rigorous education possible. I don't want to move on if anyone else wanted to share. Is there anybody else that wanted to share? No? All right. And so before we jump into the video that's next, let's have a quick Olivia Pope moment. And so again, I want you to continue to think about like what matters to you most, right? What do you want? Because for you to find the job that you're really looking for, and for you not to potentially burn out in your first opportunity, you really have to prioritize yourself. And so we're gonna watch a video quickly from Lily Eskelson Garcia, who's gonna summarize what teachers do. And at the very end, I would love to hear your feedback around what you thought of the video. And we'll have to turn it up so you can hear me.
Keyboard album, yeah.
On the panel, you can
I work with the National Education Association at UW. I was sitting on an airplane with a nice talkative man in the middle seat. If I hear someone is talkative, oh my God, they're so talkative. And he's telling me where he's going and what he's doing and what his business is. And he says, so what do you do, darling? And I said, well, I'm a teacher, and now I work with the National Education Association. And he stopped smiling. And he said, I've heard about you people. He said, I hear you need this, and then I hear you need that, and I hear you need something else. And to tell you the truth, darling, I'm getting tired of hearing it. I'm a businessman. I want you to bottom line it for me. I want you to tell me right now, what is the one single thing that would solve all of our problems in public schools? And I said, that's easy. What we really need are fewer people who think there's one single thing that would solve all of our problems in public schools. And you know, I wish I hadn't been so snotty to that guy, but it was fun. And here's the thing, he's not the enemy. Most people, their kids are grown and gone, or they never had kids, they don't walk into a neighborhood public school. I'm an educator. It's up to me to educate the man in the middle seat as much as to educate a politician about what happened in any given typical school on any given typical day. I mean, we serve kids a hot meal. We put Band-Aids on boo-boos. We diversify our curriculum and instruction to meet the personal and individual needs of all of our students, the blind, the hearing impaired, the physically challenged, the gifted and talented, the chronically retarded, and the medically annoying. We make sure that they have their immunizations, make sure they understand disease control, teach them to resist drugs, alcohol, tobacco. We give career counseling, pregnancy counseling, mental health counseling. We get them on the bus safely. We take them off the bus safely. We provide computer instruction, sex education. We stop bullying, teach them to say, I'm sorry, and mean it. We instill an understanding of civil rights, the political process, challenge racism, foster social tolerance and appreciation for our cultural and religious diversity. We teach the principles of free enterprise, how to be a good sport. We develop personal responsibility, practice bicycle safety, and check for headlights. We provide bilingual education, teach metrics, how to be a white consumer, exercise, weight control, how to drive a car. We teach the impact of wars, develop collaborative skills, how to tune a violin, how to use reason, evidence, protect the future. We teach them to revere their environment, how to manage their money, how to access information, how to make wise choices, how to balance a checkbook. We teach loyalty to the ideals of a democracy. We build patriotism, good oral hygiene, and respect for the worth and dignity of every individual. We nurture curiosity, we encourage a good question, build self-esteem, and then we teach reading, writing, and arithmetic.
So, and I feel like that's still only the beginning of being a teacher, right? It wasn't until I walked into a classroom and taught myself that I really get a true appreciation of what it takes to be really good at that job, and really what teachers in my life had contributed to my success. And so once I get this to go back correctly, I'll be able to keep going. And so we're gonna go ahead and transition into talking about this puzzle piece analogy. And so really quickly to summarize it, it's pretty straightforward, but I want you to think of the puzzle as the school culture, right? And so again, when we talk about school culture, it's what's being created by the administrative staff in the building and reinforced by the teacher leaders. And then you're gonna think about yourself and how you fit into this puzzle. And so much like if you've ever put a puzzle together, if a piece doesn't fit, it pops right back out again, right? And so why we're talking about school fit is because realistically that can be or will be you. If you don't really fit well within the school's culture, at some point in time you will come back out again and have to find a new puzzle to try to join together with. And so if you're really purposeful about your actions and your intentions up front in the very beginning, you'll fit just like this puzzle does here. And so I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to do the exact same thing that I just did in regards to choosing the 4 qualities that are most important to you. I'll give you that time in a second, but I do wanna review what my puzzle piece is and why I chose those 4. And so for me, it really starts here with restorative justice, and I'll dive into that on the very next slide. But again, I don't believe in punitive consequences. For me, consequences in a school are to try to teach children how to make better decisions as they move forward. And so a student that throws a pencil and a student that punches someone in the face shouldn't meet with these same exact consequences. And so for me, that's why restorative justice is number 1. Whole child is 2. Like I said, I don't want to teach to a state test. I believe that we should teach children how to become really progressive and innovative individuals. And so in order to do that, I believe that you have to be within a whole child environment. I'm very mission driven. Anything that I do in my life, I put my entire self behind it. So I never align myself with things I do not believe in or understand. And so that's why I'm here with Selected today, right? And then professional development, as we talked about, that's huge. I believe that you have to get better. Sometimes you can do it yourself. Sometimes you learn through adversity, but more often than not, it's the people within the school's building that are charged with your development that have to be at the forefront and the lead of that. And if they aren't, then you really need to question if that's the best fit for you, or if professional development is not important, no harm, no foul, right? It doesn't matter. But I think for any teacher that really wants to continue to get better, professional development should really be at the top of your list. Just my opinion. So again, I want you to take some time here to talk about what your top 4 qualities are. On the next slide, I'll show you exactly I'll give you some other qualities that you can choose from. Maybe they align with what you're thinking. Maybe it articulates a little bit better for you. What I don't want you to do is let salary, benefits, or pension. These things are pretty much in place. If you're going to a district, you don't have to worry about that. Charters, independent schools, they definitely do fluctuate. We'll talk about the time when you should prioritize those things, but in regards to the top 4 qualities, none of those things should be within your top 4. So here again is the list that I mentioned. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes, and again, I want you to think of what are the top 4 qualities, and I do want you to prioritize them. What's most important to what's the 4th most important thing to you, and then we'll talk about why you chose the ones that you did and why did you prioritize number 1. You have about 50 seconds left. 15 seconds. All right. So I would love to get a couple of people. You don't have to share what all 4 of your selections were, but I would love to get your number 1 and then the rationale as to why. So what did you choose as the most important quality that a school should have, and then why did you choose that quality? Yeah.
I would like a school that has like a very structured school-wide behavior management plan that I can follow along with, because I hate when like something happens and I don't know how to respond in the classroom because I'm not sure, and if like it's left entirely up to me, I'm like, well, I can do this, or I can. But I feel like if this whole school has something, then the kids grow accustomed to it and it becomes like second nature for them. Then it's easier for me to be like, well, I know exactly what I need to do because we've already like planned it out.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I love that because that's why school fit is so important. I'm on like the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Like I would much rather manage my classroom the way that I see fit as opposed to like having it prescribed to me by a school, because I don't necessarily know if those intervention methods are the best. But like you always need to choose what's best for you, right? And so in uncommon schools where I hire, like that would be a fit, right? Because each school, each classroom looked the exact same from a behavioral management standpoint. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
This is kind of similar, but it's having like not only it's along the lines of like collaborative environment, but it's having the support of not only other teachers but also the administration, like feeling like you have the support. Because I've been in many classrooms where I've seen the teachers like kids off the wall, and they've gone on weeks without receiving support or anything like that from the school or from even the teachers. Having something to have the support.
And again, back to like professional development and observations, that needs to be something that's like specifically mandated or written out. Like have a climate person or a dean or someone that does those sort of interventions. But absolutely, just imagine being a teacher in your classroom. You've been asking for help for weeks now, and like no one is coming any longer. Like that's a situation where ultimately you may choose to leave that school or that organization to find a better opportunity. Can't say that that's right, can't say that's wrong, that's a personal decision. But oftentimes, if you prioritize that choice in advance, you may not end up in a school culture like that in the first place. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, there's many things, but one of the top things I thought, just to be to myself, is like mission driven, because I feel like so when I teach like different things, like I feel like a different mission when I do that kind of like teaching, and in Spanish. So I feel like I have to have sort of like a purpose that will match with, that have like sort of a, I guess, think of that way, that there's a priority of like teaching a language or teaching like ENL. I mean, it's an ideal situation, but I also feel like not just by teaching those particular subjects, but as education, as like a whole like institution.
Absolutely. And mission driven is extremely important. If you're showing up 180 school days times however many years that you do this trade, it's important that you feel aligned with what's happening in that building. And if you don't, again, you find when we looked at the teacher retention survey, people went a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons, but ultimately they did not find that fit that they were looking for in time to keep them in a classroom. I saw you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, my priority is teachers having like spirit, or they're passionate about what they're doing.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Having passionate colleagues is just so important, because there's so many problems in education, and I really want to see like there's a culture of like problem solving or productivity, that we're working together instead of complain and then we start to.
That's right.
You get like 30 snaps for that one. I like that. Because I worked in buildings where like you have really, not to say that tenured teachers don't bring the passion as well, but like I was in a building where we have really tenured teachers, one of whom was literally in his last year. And so you can imagine like his commitment to his trade at that point had really waned, much like senior writers, right? So really no different for administrators and for teachers. And so I 100% agree. I need to be in a building where as a team we help each other get to the finish line, because again, 180 days, roughly like half of the year, but realistically it's a long haul. And it's intensive 6-8 hour days. We're really pushing forward the learning in our building. And so like that takes a lot of work. And so absolutely you need to have team members with you that are gonna really help you out. I could definitely take one more person if anyone else wanted to share.
And I agree with her, just to piggyback on that, it's like you're gonna be spending your time with colleagues more like longer, like every year with the same people. So you
Yeah.
want to also have like a good vibe with the department and the people you work with. So that's something that I think about too, because the kids come and go too, right? So they change, so but I think that your colleagues are going to stay there usually for longer terms.
Absolutely. I mean, realistically, depending on the type of school you work in or where you work, you may spend more time with your colleagues at work than you do with your family at home. And so it's pretty important, like, you like the people that you work with. I love my team that's selected. So, like, it doesn't feel like a long haul to spend time with them because I cherish them as individuals. And so, again, prioritizing those sorts of things as you look for a job in the ideal school is imperative. Thank you to everyone that shared. And so, didn't die, right? There we go. All right. And so, now that we know what we want and what we need, we're going to talk a little bit about why. And so we're going to go through a consultant method, which is called the 5 Whys protocol. I make a comparison to talking to my 3-year-old nephew, who I tell him things, any child, right? You tell them something, they want to know why. And so this is a great way for you to take and isolate each of the priorities that you chose and really go deep. So we'll go about 5 whys, and I'll give you an example of what that looks like. But again, the 5 Whys protocol is really to investigate root causes and to get to the bottom of if this really matters to you. And you'll find that maybe you chose a priority that doesn't really. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start here. And so for mine, schools must have or must use restorative justice practices. And so I say that to my nephew. He's like, well, why, Uncle Malcolm? Well, because I don't want to be involved with punishing children using punitive consequences. He doesn't understand what any of those words mean. So he says, well, why, Uncle Malcolm? Because I believe that punitive consequences perpetuates the school to prison pipeline, right? And for me, to take a side note really fast, this is why I'm in education. This is why I've only served in low-income communities. This is why I won't ever go anywhere else, because I'm really championing for the fact that we have to end this. And I really do believe that if you aren't utilizing restorative justice practices, you are perpetuating that cycle to school, from school to prison. Back in. All right. And so, well, why, Uncle Malcolm? A school-to-prison pipeline normalizes society's tendency to incarcerate low-income people of color. You can take the people of color part off, low-income people in general. The prison industrial complex is built off of it. And so if we're in teaching and if we're in education, it should be to educate the people the prison industrial complex is currently taking advantage of. And so, well, why, Uncle Malcolm? Well, clearly, Terry, you don't understand what we're talking about right now. We'll come back to this at a later time. Feel free to go ahead and watch TV. But for you all, I would love for you to go ahead and go 5 whys in. Again, when you get to this 3rd why, it's usually still pretty superficial. That 4th and 5th why forces you to really think about what matters to you. And once you can kind of get to the other side of the superficial aspects, you'll figure out if these things that you've now prioritized actually are priorities. And so again, this is what the matrix looks like once you go through all of your reasons and all of your whys. And so we've talked about, we've defined what your best fit is. We talked about what they are, we've gone through why you've chosen them. And so we're gonna assess each school using those factors, right? So like fit factors. And so every school, every hiring school has a minimum candidate threshold that you have to meet or exceed to get hired. And so you all should have minimum school thresholds, right, that a school should meet or exceed for you to even entertain them as a job. And so I feel a lot of teachers don't. And so we'll talk about now how you can kind of establish that for yourself. And so before you even go on your interview, so you're gonna wanna create questions that are aligned with your priorities, and this is imperative. Because if you're not probing specifically around the things that you've prioritized, and you really haven't utilized that time and that space effectively, they're going to always ask you if you have questions. Schools, myself as a hiring manager and as a recruiter, I expected at least one question if you did not have it. I've seen candidates that did pretty well in their sample lesson get to an in-person interview, not have a question and not get the job. It's just a lack of introspection on your part. And if you don't have a question, if you didn't prepare in advance, that reflects very negatively on you. And so all of that to say, you can also go about researching the school's background, right? Research their presence online. Do they use social media? A lot of us Probably want schools that are like ingrained and invested in the community. A great way to check and see if they are, go to their Instagram page, go to their Snapchat, go to their Twitter, go to LinkedIn. Do they have pictures of themselves in the community, or is it just a bunch of teachers standing in their building? Two very distinctly different things, right? And so if community investment is something you're looking for, there are a lot of really great ways to find that out. Research the school and its presence in the community. What's its history? You'll find plenty of questions through the process of just researching that you can then leverage during your interview. So once you get to the interview, again, like I said, at the very end of your in-person interview, they're gonna say, hey, do you have any questions for me? And this is your chance to go ahead and start probing around your priorities, right? And so you're gonna wanna probe heavily. You wanna talk to community stakeholders. Every single session that I do, I'll give the exact same suggestion. Talk to the janitor in the building, talk to the security guard in the building. These two people are usually not employed by that school. And so they will be very, very honest with you about the teacher. So if you wanna know if community is in the building, I would talk to the janitorial staff. I would ask the janitor or the custodian, hey, do the teachers in the school talk to you when they come in? Do they know your first name? Do they interact with you at all? If he says no, me personally, I'm not working in that building because I interact with everyone the exact same way. I don't show preference whatsoever. It's not necessary, right? We're all professionals. And so if that's something that matters, those are really two people that you can usually target to speak to. That'll be very honest. You can also reach out to former teachers of that school or that district on LinkedIn. Former teachers are usually, again, very, very honest and forthright about their experience. Current teachers, if you don't know them personally, they may not be, just because there is sometimes backlash that comes with that sort of transparency. When you're in the school, you want to observe and take mental notes. Your entire process in that interview is to cross-check what you're looking for, your priorities, with what you've seen online, that school's presence and identity, with what you see in person, right? And so as you're going through that building, if they say they believe in restorative justice, but you see deans or teachers yelling at students in the hallway, or if they're saying they teach whole child, but you observe two classrooms where direct and explicit instruction is happening, you have to then question what is it that they're saying versus what you see. And so your job is to find the red flags, right? As a recruiter, my job was to find your red flags. And so when you show up to the building, I'm still probing. That same security guard and custodian that I'm telling you to speak to, I spoke to during your recruitment session just to see if you said anything to them whatsoever, or did you walk right past them. And so again, your job is to find that school's red flags, and when you do, you want to ask questions around them to make sure that they aren't just a one-off or a bad day for that school. Make sure that they're aligned to your priorities. And so once you're finished with the interview, you've probed around priorities, you've had your conversations, you took copious notes during the process, which I 100% suggest. You want to compare your notes with your original priorities. So going into that interview, you had your set of 4 or 5 priorities that you probed around. When you're done and you're decompressing and thinking about everything that happened, are those priorities the right one, right? Or the right ones, I should say. Did that school have any of them? And usually on that 4, you'll get 3 or 4, right? 75% is usually good. And I say if you can get 3 out of 4 priorities, that's probably the school to go with. 2 out of 4, you really probably have to think, are those 2 the top 2 priorities? If so, probably. If not, probably not. 1 out of 4, 0 out of 4, I would not suggest it unless you're really, really in desperation mode for a job. And even in desperation mode for a job, I would not suggest it because you'll be unhappy. So I would say even if you find yourself at the 0 hour, keep pushing forward because there will be a better opportunity that arises that aligns with what you care about. Again, does the school align? Decide next steps. So if a school doesn't align with your priorities, there's nothing wrong with saying no. There's nothing wrong with rejecting that school. There's everything wrong with ghosting. So if you just disappear, I'm gonna tell you right now what happens. You get 2 chances, okay? So the first time I reach out to you, I'm interested in you for an interview, you ghost on me, I notate in your profile that you disappeared on me. Any recruiter on that team, any recruiter in that district can absolutely see those notes. Within school districts especially, it's historic, so it stays. If you apply today and apply again in 15 years, they're still using the same application tracking system, your note is still there. The second time that you ghost on me, you're finished. You can't apply again, right? And guess what also happens? We work in recruitment consortiums because we're also close-knit and it's a really hard job. So we talk about active ghosters within any community. So with any region, recruiters know who's ghosting on them. My suggestion, create a really quick templated rejection that says, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. Currently, I'm not interested, but if moving forward I am, I'll reach out to you again and reapply. Copy, paste it, send it to every school you're not interested in. There's no notation. I don't say anything. I look at you as a consummate professional. No harm, no foul. Continue to apply to me. If you don't, I've told you, it's on video right here. Twice. You get 2 chances. that second chance, you're finished, okay? And so again, decide on next steps. That's if you're rejecting that school. If you're still interested, continue to move forward in the process, absolutely. Continue to interview, even if you've gotten an interview with your #1 school, the one that you love, absolutely, more than anything else. Guess what? Life happens. Sometimes you won't get that job. Push forward. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. That's a bad investment in yourself, okay? So keep pushing forward, keep interviewing. Once you're done and you've walked out of that building, you have to wait for the news, right? Keep pushing forward. I'm standing here in front of you as a person that has been rejected from so many job opportunities that I've applied to, but I am here as selected where I'm supposed to be, and this is my ideal fit, and this happened because I just kept pushing forward, right? So quitting in the process is not being true to yourself. You've invested in yourselves as teachers already. Graduate, go out into the workforce, and find that school that's the best fit for you. And so we've defined what fit is. We've assessed now how to line up each prospective school in relation to those fit factors. And so now we're going to talk about making that right choice, okay? And so here is the point where everybody gets excited because you get a chance to talk about money and benefits. Well, guess what? If you go to a district, there is no conversation, right? Usually districts have you locked into a very specific pay scale that you can look at right now because it's public. It's lined up with your teaching certifications, with your degrees and years of experience. In charter schools and independent schools, there's usually a salary band. As a charter school recruiter, I gave you an offer of $55,000 because you wouldn't negotiate with me because teachers usually don't. But I know that I'm up to 65, right? And so I've had maybe 10% of the teachers, and I've given offers to, my goodness, hundreds of teachers. Of that 100, I would say maybe 5 have negotiated. Of that 5, 100% got what they were looking for because they knew the process. Everybody else that could have, and I had conversations with some people and suggested it. Special education gets you a little bit more money, right? If you have additional certifications, it gets you a little bit more. But a lot of times people are scared to negotiate those terms. And so this is your chance now to negotiate and evaluate those benefits. Does that school still match up to your priorities? And again, you're never gonna find a school that's a 4 out of 4 that's gonna also pay you really, really well. Usually there's a trade-off at that point, right? If you find a school that's like 4 out of 4 in that hit factor, they are the dopest school you've ever seen, heard of, walked into, they are probably not paying you very well. There's a really solid chance, right? And so I don't want to deter you from taking that opportunity. I just want to be really straightforward and honest about that. Still, measure up with priorities, right? Is money the most important thing? And that's why I told you to take it off the list in the first place. You shouldn't be prioritizing that. Prioritize what's going to make you happy. The money eventually will come, and I think any educator can attest to that. Notes from your process. So again, make sure you're taking copious notes throughout the entire process, because what I want you to do at the very end is a point-based pros and cons, profit and loss statement, whatever you want to call it. You really want to weigh the pros versus the cons with the schools that you're looking at. If it comes out on top that there are more pros, and there should be far more pros than cons. It shouldn't be 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, right? It should be far more pros than cons. If so, then that means most likely you're ready to move on to the next steps. If you aren't and still need more information, like I said, you can speak to current and former staff. LinkedIn is a great way. Leverage NYU, right? Like there are tons of teachers actively working, alumni right now that can talk to you about the schools where they work. They'll give you real feedback. Take them out to coffee, pay for everything, pay for their donut and their bagel and their coffee, and they will tell you the absolute truth, right? And continue to invest in yourself. I'm so serious. Don't ever have them pay for it themselves. That will be the last time they talk to you, okay? So pay for it for them, but they'll give you the information that you're looking for, and they really will probably help you out in the process. Also, again, if you didn't get an opportunity, go to observe the school. Absolutely. I would even suggest, if you did observe it during your in-person interview, they roll out the red carpet. We polish the walls and the floors, right? We run all the mice out of the building. We make sure that there's nothing wrong the day that you show up, because we want to sell you on this image. And this is just the truth. Go back a different day. Go back a day when they haven't spruced the building up, when on a Thursday or a Friday towards the end of the week when all the teachers are burned out, and really get a chance to see what it looks like and what it operates as. That's the real snapshot right there, right? And then again, realign your priorities to make sure that it makes sense. Talk to the school leader about your concerns. So at the very end, if after the observation, after you talk to the former and current staff, if you still have questions, burning things that you have to figure out, again, feel free to follow back up with that administrator. I can say any school leader that's not gonna respond to your questions does not value you as a teacher in their building. And also think, if that person is not receptive to those questions in that moment in time, they probably won't be when you become a teacher, and that'll be that leader that has you waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks for a response for something that can happen immediately. And so if the math doesn't add up, when in doubt, trust your gut. Something that we talk about all the time at Selected is like developing pattern recognition. So when you see things happening over and over again, you kind of be able to jump ahead of the curve because you've already sort of figured out what's happening next. Call it Neo in the Matrix, right? Like when you see the breakdown of everything, you're able to kind of get ahead. Your gut instinct is your subconscious telling you that something is awry, right? Something is wrong. And if that is kicking in, stick with it, believe in it. It's attuned, trust yourself more than anyone else. And why I told you to be self-reflective and also really selfish is because no one else can tell you what kind of teacher you'll be. No one else is gonna show up for those 180 days in a row and work for you. So you have to prioritize yourself no matter what. So trust yourself and believe in your gut. Decline respectfully, like I said, don't ghost. I already gave you an example of what will happen if you do. Trust me, you cannot outrun the process. Recalibrate your priorities if need be. So for me, on that list, they said like low income versus middle versus high socioeconomic. And like I said, I've been in low income pretty much my entire career, but like that isn't one of my top 4 priorities because I am really interested in working for a highly prestigious independent school one day because I also want to see what it looks like on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, right? Like candidates that don't have to struggle every single day and students that don't have to struggle for everything they have. What does that look like? Because I've never experienced that. And so again, as you get older in your career, what you prioritize day one as a new teacher, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road may not matter any longer. Continue to reassess and audit the things that matter currently where you are in your career. And again, just keep moving forward. Don't quit. If leaving teaching or leaving education is what you feel in your heart, make sure it's the truth. Because I know some people that was their knee-jerk reaction because it became really difficult. There are so many different types of schools. If a public school isn't it, maybe independent school. Independent isn't it, maybe a parochial school, right? If there's so many businesses and nonprofits within education, if really uplifting students is what you're passionate about, stay true to that and find the best place for you to accomplish it. And if everything lines up, sign the offer. Remember this. High five for Malcolm. Congratulations, man. Way to align your priorities and go get the job in the school you're looking for. I'm proud of you. Enjoy your new job. And just again, make sure to be true to yourself. And so have some resources that I'll share with you. So getselected.com if you are interested in signing up for a free application and profile with us. That is our website. Feel free to visit that at any time. Blog.getselected.com is our free blog site. So it's a bunch of free resources that we have for you all as aspiring teachers. I think there's about 46 articles and counting as of right now. But specifically, we do have a school fit blog post. And so we have included in that probing questions by priority. So that list of priorities that I share with you all, we also have questions aligned with those. So when you go to your interview, you have kind of an idea what do you want to ask when you get there. And so closing thoughts really quickly, and then I want to get to questions. You know yourself best. Again, trust your instinct, trust your gut, just trust yourself. Keep your priorities accountable. Again, prioritize yourself first, be selfish. In the process for finding your job, be selfish. When you show up to that school, be selfless, right? Be mission driven, be service oriented, but finding that school is imperative that you're true to yourself. Approach strategically around your priorities. Don't go through the process of creating a list of priorities and never use it to find a job, right? I feel like a lot of people we want to talk about we're mission driven, mission aligned, but then we never allow that mission to drive what we're looking for. And so utilize these priorities as it means to find that exact school fit, and then move forward as your most authentic self. The last piece here, so many people that I've interacted with as teachers, when they found out I was a recruiter, they wanted to be the teacher that they thought I wanted to hire. To be quite honest, that has never worked a single time because interacting with you, first of all, I just want you to be you, and the minute that it comes off that you aren't, I'm worried and concerned because I feel like as a chameleon, I don't want you in my school environment, right? I don't want a chameleon in my school culture because that's disingenuous, and kids pick up on that really, really quickly. And so be your most authentic self, find that perfect fit for you because this is what this is all about. And again, this is my contact information. If you have any questions, I'll be here. I think this ends at 2:30. I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon. But if you can't catch me today, or if you go home later on and you're thinking about questions that you didn't get a chance to ask in a moment, Malcolm@getselected.com. I have some business cards on me as well. If you need it, it has my cell phone number as well. And that's it. So any questions?
These are just general questions.
Yes. Sure.
Okay, so my question is, you're just like a nonprofit matching platform, let's say, but why would we use yours versus what the DOE has to offer?
So-
Is there any like preference or?
We are for-profit, so I want to differentiate
okay.
there. Yep, so we are a for-profit company, and the difference between our matching service and the DOE is that we don't specifically just work or contract to the DOE. So we work with a number of charter schools, independent schools, parochial schools all throughout New York City. And so realistically, signing up for a profile with Selected gives you an opportunity to just be paired with the various numbers of schools here in New York that ultimately like really hard to find just through Google research. That's why we exist. Is to really help you get better visibility with the different types of schools that are around here.
But it's free for us to use.
Yeah, absolutely. It's free for every teacher.
And then would you recommend using your platform simultaneously that we use the Department of Ed's platform, or does it just get too?
Mr. Erican, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely use both.
Both.
Use all the resources added. I think,
Yeah.
people that know that they want to go to district schools, they'll use your platform to just see what's out there
Okay.
and get exposed to a lot of different opportunities. And we also have an article about negotiating. I think what's really important is just generating a lot of options for yourself.
I just want to jump in quickly. So
Of course.
tomorrow morning's session is specifically about the Department of Ed's platform.
Yeah.
In order to get a job in the New York City DOE, you do need to sign up for that platform. That's a must do. Selected offers another great option for schools sort of outside of the sort of main DOE application. But come tomorrow and we'll talk explicitly about that platform.
Yeah, definitely. If you're interested in finding out more information about that, I know it can be somewhat complex. Definitely show up to that session tomorrow. But yeah, like I said, we do work with the DOE, but most of our matching is going to happen with like charter school networks, independent single site schools here in New York City, and pretty much up and down the East Coast, down to DC and Baltimore.
I think we've got over 100 New York City DOE schools.
Yeah,
using
as of
Selected.
right now, yeah. Between K through 12, yeah.
You said this is not in all states, though. You don't work with all states.
As of right now, we do not. What state were you interested in?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, no. So we're now in, the lowest we've gone so far is DC and Baltimore. And we're having like internal conversations about other ways, but if you wanna have a one-off about like job searching in South Carolina, I'll talk to you. Okay. Yes.
You mentioned the possibility of going to a school on like a different day. How would you recommend reaching out to a school about doing that? I imagine you don't want to just show up and be like, hey, I interviewed them. Can I see your school now? So what's like some appropriate language or ways to do that, one? And
Yeah.
two, for first year teachers, since it's possible we may not even get interviewed until the school is either the very end or out of session, are there other ways that you can gauge that if you can't see the school in session?
Yes, so excellent questions. The first, usually you can reach directly out to whoever the recruiter was that you were having those conversations with. So if that's the principal, AP, if there's a recruiter like myself that work for the network, we'll set that school tour up for you. Oftentimes it's gonna happen after your demo lesson, an in-person interview. It's like, hey, I would love to just come back in again to kind of get more information and a better feel of the school. 90% of the time they'll be open and receptive to it. The back end of your question makes it's a little bit complex. The first thing I would say is, even if you aren't certified, or if you haven't completed your degree program, you can still start to apply for schools. So like you can interview before you're finished with that point. And so I wouldn't suggest like waiting until May or June to start that process. I would start it now, and then tell schools in conversations, write directly on your resume, anticipate a graduation date, be very specific around that. But in order to avoid like those late summer sort of hiring seasons where like things get really weird because kids aren't in the building, I would start early. If it is a process where people are out of the building, then again, the observation sort of portion kind of becomes null and void because there's nothing really to see. At that point, personally, I love talking to people in the neighborhood. I like asking them, what has the school done? What does it stand for to them? As sort of like a replacement, because a lot of times, like even though it may be a charter school, proximity is like how you get to the top of the list. So living close to that school usually is something that like is prioritized. So a lot of those people that live around that building and in that community may know. So I don't know how comfortable you would be with that, but that's something that I've also done as well. But yeah, at the end of the hiring season, like during the summer, it becomes really complicated because a lot of schools don't have kids come, so you'll have to do your lessons in front of a group of adults, usually like the highest ranking administrators out in the school. So that can be high pressure, but just believe in yourself. And they're also used to people coming in there and not being perfect because no neophyte teacher is, and B, like they're looking for you to be coachable more than anything else. So, you know, falling a little bit short, as long as you're reflective, you'll be fine. Yeah.
And in those interviews, this is just a tricky question. In those interviews where we're teaching a lesson, is it more typical that, how do I phrase it? Is it more typical that I'm to treat you as if you were a student? Like I go into, I'm teaching it as if the panel in front of me were actual students, and you're gonna role play with me?
Yep.
Or I'm explaining why I chose?
We act like students.
Okay.
So like before you come in, we have like predetermined roles. So I was always the turn up kid because like I like the turn up. And so I would be the one that like disrupted your class, and realistically